Hello everyone, welcome back to Das Haus with Thomas Gunn, and today we're going to be making another traditional German dish, this time with meat. So this is called frikadellen. I believe it's spelled Frikadellen. Anyway, I'll double check that. But I guess the best way to describe it would be kind of a cross between a hamburger and an individual meatloaf. So what you're going to need is some ground beef. I've got lean ground. You can get medium, that's fine as well. They didn't have any when I went. You're going to need half a large chopped onion, finely chopped. Typically, when I was taught this, I was taught to do it with raw onion, but I find sometimes the onion that ends up being in the middle of the frikadelle isn't quite cooked. So I like to just fry my onion quickly in some butter before putting it into the meat. So here, I'll show you real quick. So I've chopped it up. I put it in about a tablespoon of butter. I fried it literally for about 3 minutes, just so that the acrid taste that an onion can sometimes have is exuded from the onion. So this is just a little over a pound of meat. To that, you're also going to need some day-old bread. So typically we use rye bread. You could probably use a day-old baguette or French bread if you have, but make sure it's not fresh. If it's fresh, it's going to get too mushy. So here, I'll show you my bread. So I cut my bread into cubes. It's still sitting in the milk. You're going to wring that out when we add it to the meat, but don't wring it out so dry that there's nothing left, because the reason to adding this is to give the dish some, what's the word I'm looking for? Moisture? I think there's another word. Anyway, moisture. You're going to need an egg. You're going to need salt, pepper. I'm going to be adding just a bit of garlic powder. Sorry about that. Just a bit of garlic powder. You don't need to, that's not traditional. Or maybe in your area it is, I don't know. And you're going to need some parsley. Because of what's going on right now in the world, I didn't feel like going to the grocery store, so I'm not using fresh parsley. I'm using dry. I think I'm going to end up using about a tablespoon. So typically, dried herbs versus fresh herbs, you want to double the fresh as opposed to dry. So you can use 2 tablespoons of freshly chopped parsley. You can even go to 3. I find parsley doesn't really have a strong flavor. So if you like parsley, add a bit more. And while we're at that, since I'm going to be making this for myself for supper anyway, I'm making some mashed potatoes. So I'll just go over really quickly how my mother used to make those. So presently I'm boiling 5 medium-sized peeled and cubed potatoes in a pot with about just water to cover, and I've added about a teaspoon of salt, and I've put in a large garlic clove. You don't need to add the garlic if you don't like garlic. That's just a personal preference for me, so I add a garlic clove. And that's going to then bring it up to the boil, and those are going to simmer for about 20 minutes until they break when you pierce them with a fork. So I've already got my potatoes going, so let's get going on the frikadelle. So let's first add our salt. And I find in the past I've been under-salting this. So let's start off. Yeah, that's a teaspoon, that looks good. So a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add, that was a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And I think I will also add a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Okay. Let's get in our tablespoon of dried parsley. That's plenty. Let's put in, so this was, like I said, a large onion. I don't think I need all of that, so let's put in, yeah, let's put in just a bit more than half of that large chopped onion. This is what I have left on that plate. And 1 whole egg for binding. And now you're going to take the bread. I'm going to try to get it both in frame for you guys. Take the bread, squeeze most of the milk out with your hands, and then as you put it in to the meat, just kind of break it up a bit more. You don't want it to be breadcrumbs. You do want actual little chunks of bread. And then you're going to go in with your hands. So I didn't use all my bread. So let's say that was 4 slices of rye. And the rye bread slice is about that big. Okay, it's not a huge slice of bread. So let's go in. Give this all a mix. So this is really traditional, at least in the region where my parents were from, which is kind of central Germany, near Kassel. But I have seen this online, so it must be fairly well known. So my mother used to taste this raw, but then she also used to love steak tartare, which I just can't wrap my head around. And I think my sister actually still does taste this raw, but I just can't bring myself to do it. So if you're brave enough, go ahead, try this. If it needs any more seasoning to your own personal taste, go ahead. So there we go. That's the frikadelle done. This now we're going to fry in a pan. So heat yourself up some oil. Make sure it's enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. And get that on a medium heat. I'm just going to wash my hands real quick, and then we're going to come back and move over to the oven. All right, so here we go. We're at the stovetop. My oil is heating. As you can see how much oil I've got in there. What is that? Maybe a quarter inch. That's heating up. And now we're going to form our frikadellen. So you want to take a decent size, decent like meatball size, put it in your hand, make it a circle, and then just flatten it a bit. These are not meant to be flat, like a typical hamburger. My oil is jumping because I just rinsed my pan because I fried the onions in the same pan. So there we go. That's our frikadelle. Just put that in your oil. Put it on a medium low because you want these to fry relatively slowly. But they do need to get quite dark. Anyway, that's how I was taught. You do let them go dark, but you'll be able to see what I mean. Let's put another one in. So it looks like this is going to make 5. And these are great the next day. You can eat them cold on a sandwich. I usually slice them in half, through the middle. And then on some rye bread with mustard. We always used to have these when we were little kids. We'd go to the beach. Yes, there are beaches in Canada. We'd go to the beach, and my mother would pack like a cold picnic, and there would usually be frikadellen, and there would be some fried chicken and boiled eggs and tomatoes and bread, of course. So my 5th one is going to be a little smaller than the rest. Get myself a spatula, or not. I don't think I've washed my spatula yet, so I'm just going to take a spoon. I just want to move this one over. so I can fit the other one in. There we go. So we're going to let these fry now. Once I'm ready to turn them, I'll come back just to show you, about how dark to get them. So yeah, this is on a medium-low, or you know what, just medium. Just keep it on a medium, just so that they keep frying away slowly. All right, and once I'm ready to flip them, I'll come back. All right, we're ready to flip the frikadellen. So 6 plus 3, it's been 8 to 9 minutes so far on the one side. Now you're going to flip them over. So you see how dark that is? That is actually how you want it. These aren't burned. There's no black. It's just a nice deep brown. So now we're going to let them go again, probably the same amount of time until they reach the same color on the other side. In the meantime, my potatoes are still cooking away. I'm going to drain those when I come back. I'm also heating up some French green beans. My mother would typically serve this with peas and carrots, but I don't have any due to the situation. I don't have fresh and I don't have canned. And yes, Germans do use canned goods. I had somebody comment something about using processed item, and I mean, not everybody in Germany has a garden that they go out to pick vegetables, or a market on the corner. Plenty Germans do use canned goods. So my mother actually would use canned peas and carrots, and she would put the whole can in a pot with the liquid it was in. And then she would add about a tablespoon of cornstarch and bring that up to a simmer, and the liquid would thicken up. And that's how she would serve it. So I don't have any, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would do it that way, and I quite like it that way. It's good with the mashed potatoes. So I'm just going to heat myself up some Frenched beans. And once this is done, we'll come back. I'll show you really quick how to prepare the mashed potatoes, and then supper will be done. All right, there we go. So that was another 8 minutes on the other side. And the other side is now also brown. So I'm going to take these off the heat. I'm going to put them on a plate that's lined with some paper towel, just so that the fat can drain. They will continue to cook a little bit still, but before serving, do cut into one at least, just to make sure that they're done all the way through. All right, I'm just going to take my hot pan off. And now we're going to go on to doing the mashed potatoes. So I'm just going to drain my water off the potatoes. I meant to do that before I started the camera, but I forgot, so it's all right. So here we go. There's my potatoes. Excuse the look of my pot. I don't know, cooking with gas, it just really does a number on your pots. Is that just me, or does that happen to other people out there? And I don't have any stainless cleaner on hand right now, and I don't feel like going out to get any. So yeah, it looks, my pot doesn't look nice, but I mean, it is washed. If anybody out there has tips for cleaning that, or for it not happening with a gas cooker, let me know down below. So there's two types of mashers, right? You have this kind, which is a little bigger, and I have this kind where the holes are a lot smaller. I prefer using this one because you'll get a finer mash. You could rice your potatoes, but honestly, who has the time? I don't feel like doing that. But I just wanted to let you know a tip. When you're browning ground beef or ground pork or ground chicken or ground turkey, if you're making a bolognese or whatever it is you're doing, this is awesome to use because, I'm a real stickler, and I stand there forever trying to break up all the meat as it's frying. This, you just keep mashing the meat as it's frying, and in no time it's done. You have a really nice crumble. It's awesome. That's a great tip. So we're just going to mash this. I left my garlic clove in here because it's all soft. It'll mash up with everything else. You're going to need on hand, you will need about 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter. I'll let you know how much I end up adding to this. Like I said, this is 5 medium-sized potatoes. So you're going to need butter, you need an egg, and you need milk. If you like, or if you make this more often, if you end up making it more often and you want a variation, you can also add cream cheese. It gives it a nice tang. You might need some more salt. The potatoes were in salted water, but once you're done mixing everything, give it a try and see if you need anything. I don't add pepper to this. Perhaps you do. There's a piece of my garlic. All right, so I'm just going to get a knife. And we're going to add in the butter. So I'm going to start with 4 tablespoons, which is half a stick. Just put that in, and it'll melt with the heat of the potatoes, because the potatoes are still very warm. So the amount of butter and milk you end up adding will depend on how creamy or how firm you like your mashed potatoes. I like mine quite rich and creamy. My kids preferred them a bit more on the solid side. They didn't like food that was too mushy. So you're going to play with the milk to get that. Please don't do this part, the mashing, in a food processor or a blender. If you do that, you release way too many of the glutens and the starches in your potatoes, and it becomes a gummy mess. It's quite disgusting. If you've ever done that, they're really, really gummy. All right, so now what I do, make myself a well, kind of in the middle. I pour in just a touch of milk, like what is that, 2 or 3 tablespoons, and I crack my egg into this. Because if I crack my egg right into the hot potatoes, it's going to cook the egg. I'm just going to take a fork and just break up the egg really quick. And now you just mash that in. Just stir it in. I think maybe it's the addition of an egg, which is different from the way North Americans make it. But it gives it such a nice pale yellow color. And it gives it just a touch of extra flavor. So that's actually as creamy as I would want it. That's a good level of creaminess for me. If you like them creamier or wetter, go ahead at this stage and add some more milk. Sorry about the noise. So let's just give these a taste. A quick taste. That's perfect. I don't need any more salt. So there we go. That's the mashed potatoes. My French beans are done. The frikadellen are done. Let's plate this up and then we'll say goodbye. So here we go. Here's a traditional, middle of the week German meal. Pretty quick to make. I think the whole process took me probably half an hour. Let's cut into this frikadelle. And incidentally, when I was a kid, I didn't like these. I didn't really like these at all. So I used to actually put a piece of just, Kraft Singles cheese, not sponsored, on top, just to make me feel like I was eating more of a hamburger or a cheeseburger. And it really helped, or I would have ketchup with it as a kid. But now as an adult, it's funny, as you get older, you start to look back at foods that you were taught, that you were fed as a child. And I guess it's because of nostalgia. You start to look forward to those foods that as a kid you didn't like at all. And they say also that's because your taste buds get duller as you age. Not that I'm old, just saying. So there we go. That's the frikadelle. It's cooked all the way through. Don't need to worry. That was about 8 minutes per side. My potatoes, as you can see, they're nice and creamy. Those are going to be delicious. I'm looking forward to my supper. Being one person, I don't often make myself, a proper meal, which I really should. I have my French beans, which I would normally be peas and carrots. So give this a try. It's really an economical meal. It's, you know, fairly healthy. It's easy to make, and it's traditional. So give it a try. Like this video, please. Subscribe to my channel. Bon appetit and have a great day.